Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. I'm Tony Haggerty, a Haggerty10 Twitter handle, and I'm joined today by Sean Martin at Sean Martin TCW Twitter handle and Alison McConnell. Good morning, troops. It's Friday. It's August the 5th. Dial D for Dingwall. There you go. Alison, how are you?
Good, thanks. I was just wondering if that was going to be a dial M.
Probably the criticism of the pod, the amount dial M for murder. Yes, indeed. You know how it goes. Sean, how are you? You all right?
Not bad, Tory. I'm looking at all the comments and everybody seems to be sitting in the sun by the sounds of it. But
Yeah. Well, it was sunny a minute ago in East Kilbride. It's clouded over, but there you go. Alison, sunny where you are?
I'm the same as you, Tony. It's just clouded over now. Wonder if it's a portent for what's to come.
It's never sunny in Sean's neck of the woods, but there you go. Anyway,
I would say it's always sunny on the Clyde Riviera, Tony.
Well, that's fair enough.
Never seems to be when I'm looking at the window.
Well, as we do every day, we've got an offer for you running along the bottom. £1 a month for full access. You can join us on the pod. Join us at www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. I got it right there, Sean. First time, as I didn't do it yesterday, but there you go. Alison made a bit of a faux pas. Sean had a go at me for not knowing it off by heart. But, even though it's running along the bottom of the screen.
Had a go at you. That's a bit harsh. That's a bit much.
Well, not had a go at me. Just took the mick at me, basically. But she would do, wouldn't you? I'm getting old. You know,
Still drank, didn't they? Tony, still drank.
Now, the Celtic bandwagon does head to Dingwall tomorrow, Alison. Happy hunting ground for Celtic. Pivotal moment of the campaign last season with Tony Ralston's goal. You know, they go up there in confidence after a 2-0 win over Aberdeen. What do you see happening tomorrow? Do you see more of the same, Celtic keeping their winning streak going there, or do you see a hard game?
I think both are correct. I think obviously the intention will be to go up, win the game, come back with 3 points, keep everything rosy in the garden. I anticipate it will be a very hard game. I actually saw a bit of Ross County through their Premier Sports campaign, and I was impressed with them, considering the players that they've lost. And they lost a trio of players that were all responsible for the bulk of the goals that they scored last term, and that really propelled them into that top 6 place. But I think Malcolm Mackay's recruited very astutely. I think the players that he's brought in, I was impressed with 2 or 3 of them. They've got pace in the side, a bit of confidence about them too. I don't think it will be an easy game at all. I think, as in so many of these kind of games, I think the first 15-20 minutes gives you a very good indication of just how it might play out. I think if Celtic go and score early, it's a very different game. But I think the likelihood for me is I think that Ross County will work very hard to restrict the space, to restrict Celtic's key players in moving the ball about. I think we've seen those kind of games before last season, and Celtic toiled in some of them. I think to St Mirren just before Christmas, and Livingston even at Celtic Park, those games where there's not a huge amount of space to manipulate, which is why I think those opening stages could be so important. I think if Celtic get an early start, it becomes far more difficult to adhere to that kind of game plan. But the longer the game goes on, then the harder it can become to break it down. But I think certainly it's an afternoon where you need your creative players to be on it, to be thinking, to be utilising the ball when they have it. And I think you need a clinical element in front of goal.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Alison. Sean, speaking of creative players, take the stage. What do you think?
I don't know if you're calling me creative or a player there. But, no, I think... actually, speaking of the opposition first, I think it's important. I think Alison's correct. It's important to note that they lost 3. I take it the 3 you're talking about, Alison's Regan, Charles Cook, Joseph Hungbo and Blair Spittle.
Yeah, and they lost more than that. They lost 6 or 7. Those 3, I think if you count up all the goals that they scored, particularly from January and the run-in, I think they account for something like, 90% of the goal tally or something?
Well, I have actually counted it up, not the percentage, but they've lost quite a lot in terms of that output, because Regan Charles Cook, we know, was the joint top scorer in the league with Georgios Giacomakis, but it was 13 goals and an assist he got. Joseph Hungbo got 7 goals and 3 assists, and Blair Spittle is low-key crucial for the way that they played last year as well. He was good for a goal, 5 goals, 2 assists actually, so they combined for 25 goals and 6 assists between the 3 of them, and that's all gone. Nonetheless, I also agree with you that Malcolm Mackay's recruited fairly well. He seems to have, certainly in the season, obviously, but if mostly from down south, utilising his connections down there. But he's gone for some kind of creative, forward-thinking reinforcements. People like Jan Danda from Swansea, Owura Edwards from on loan from Bristol City. Players
Edwards
like
is the one who really caught my eye. Edwards, I thought I saw him a couple of times and I really liked the look of him.
I think last season, one of the things that went under the radar, because Ange Postecoglou won a League and Cup double in his first season and Rangers got into Europe, was the fact that Ross County Gate crashed the top six. Came from nowhere, and then it was only near the end you started taking notice of Regan Charles-Cook because he was the joint top goal scorer. And I think in any other season out with Celtic and Rangers, I wrote it before that Malky had a chance for no manager of the year for the job that he did. And then he's shown again, as Alison said there and yourself, bringing in new recruits. He likes to freshen it up. I think Malky Mackay's a very good manager.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I don't think his managerial qualities were what was in doubt. To be honest, I think it was the other stuff that has been well kind of spoken about. But he's done a very good job up there. I think at the time, John Hughes could have felt hard done by not getting offered the job. I think, and then Roy McGregor went out and got Malcolm Mackay, and he's got them top six. So it's almost in retrospect, Roy McGregor got it spot on. You're right to say it was a gate crash because they didn't start the season well at all last year.
Yes.
And contrast that with this year, and Alison touched on their League Cup campaign. All right, their opening game, they struggled to a 1-1 draw with Bucky Thistle of the Highland League. They took the extra point on penalties, but still, you would expect Ross County, a Premiership outfit, to have made easy work of that. But after that, they seem to have settled into a groove. They beat Dunfermline and Alloa and East Fife without conceding a goal, scored 10 across those 3 games. I mean, I know it's different when you go to the league games compared to the League Cup games, and in that respect, Hearts away and then Celtic at home is about as tough an introduction to the Premiership proper as these new signings will get, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, without blowing your team lineup, Alison, do you expect some changes or tweaks to Celtic's formation from last week? Or
no, not really. Not particularly. I think it'll essentially be the same team. I think it will be. To be honest, I think when everyone is fit and available, I think it almost picks itself, the team. I think the forward 3 is slightly different. I think, but I think pretty much the back 4. I think the middle 3. I think the front 3, I think, can possibly be tweaked at games, will be tweaked in games, will be tweaked within games. But I think essentially you'll see the same spine throughout the campaign. I do wonder just about some pace being in the team to try and stretch the game on quite a tight pitch, and the same with a couple of wingers. And the way that Ange Postecoglou plays, the inverted wing back role that he likes to play. I thought Greg Taylor was excellent actually against Aberdeen last weekend, and I just wonder, I think you need that kind of performance again at Dingwall to try and open things up and just to try and get in behind and try and get the ball moving forward all the time.
Tony, I am not used to this uniformity of Greg Taylor praise in the comments, I must say.
Yes, we can see that big smiling face of yours, Sean, in the picture, telling us all about Greg Taylor, indeed, and singing his praises. But Sean, do you agree with Alison? Tweaks, but maybe same as?
In terms of the lineup, I'm not sure how to say it without going kind of very Liam Gallagher, so I'll just embrace it and say it'll be as you were.
Yeah.
I don't see any changes. I think unless there's Knox confirmed in the press conference later, I just don't really see any changes from the Dons game. We kind of spoke yesterday, Tony, and you might be about to say this, but you kind of suggested that maybe Giakoumakis is ideally suited for this game, and I really do see the logic.
That's the only change I can envisage. Alison said there about tweaks and stuff, but it's just that it ain't broke, is it really? Because they did well last week, and that Alison, that in my head was the only possible change I would envisage, because I'm kind of same as well, but I'm just kind of torn a wee bit.
It's an interesting one. Yeah, I appreciate the argument and the logic, but even that, I think the perception that they did well against Aberdeen is our perception, I think, is probably shared by the Celtic support. The one guy who didn't think they did well, though, was Ange Postecoglou. You know, he wanted something different. So that's the only thing that I think might prompt something changing. But I thought on reflection, his comments from the weekend suggested he wasn't pleased with the performance overall at all, and largely that comes down to just you set a standard and you want them to adhere to a particular style of play, and when it doesn't happen, you know, they're you know, you can see by his reaction that he wasn't pleased at all. So I think you might see a bit more urgency about Celtic at Dingwall, but it's a hard ground for that.
Yeah.
It's a hard pitch to go and play on. I think you saw it in April. I think when Celtic went back up, obviously there was a really tough game in December. Anthony Ralston scored the 97th minute goal, a really crucial point in the campaign to get that win that night. It was much more assured when they went back up in April, and I think that's the kind of performance that they'll be looking to replicate.
You've written a column today, Alison, about Ange's comments and things that he said, just kind of alluding to that. Some of his comments last week, they kind of took people by surprise, didn't they?
I thought they were very interesting. I thought the Jota quote I still think is interesting. I know we spoke about it on Monday in the immediate aftermath, but I do think it jumped at you. I think I think it was pointed. There was a purpose behind it. Yeah. It wasn't off the cuff. It wasn't just said in the heat of the moment. And I think that is very interesting. I think it tells you quite a lot about the manager, how he works, how he operates, and I think very reminiscent, really, of a sort of Martin O'Neill type character in terms of just keeping a bit of distance between him and the squad, and also just how unusual it is for a manager in the current climate and the modern game to come out and criticise a very popular player who's just scored an absolute glorious goal to go and basically cement the point. So I thought it was all very interesting.
It seemed like a well-rehearsed ad-lib, Sean. He was going to get that out regardless and get that message across about players slacking and
maybe
when he was picking the individuals, Alison said that he scored the worldie and everybody was talking about. It's like, look, I don't care if you do that. It's a team game and you'll not slack off, and this is what I want.
Aye, potentially. I think despite those comments, though, it was still a 2-0 win. They still played well, I think.
Yeah.
And, so for that reason, given, like, I really do see your logic with Yakimakis, I really do, and your batch is still in your corner now, you're going to need to put him in your predicted 11, I think. But I just think because it's only the second competitive game, I don't think he's immediately going to rotate Kyogo out. I don't think he was at his absolute best against Aberdeen, but I just don't think he'll get rotated out for that. The only other thing I think I would maybe say about the team is, and I made this case, we both made this case actually, Tony, before the competitive stuff started, that Anthony Ralston had enjoyed a better pre-season than Josip Juranovic, but Juranovic still started the first game and he did do well enough. So I expect him to start this one as well. Apart from that, a couple of comments in pointing out Retro Celtic here, Turnbull's pushing for a place. I think that is true. I think Turnbull is pushing for a place. I don't think he's going to get it right now. I think O'Reilly was outstanding again against Aberdeen. Yeah. I think Hatate wasn't at his absolute best, like I said with Kyogo, but he was trying things. He's always willing to try that risky pass. In the pre-season he had behind him, he's not going to be rotated out, I don't think, after one game. So I agree that Turnbull is pushing, but I think he's going to keep needing to push a wee bit. The only other thing, I mean, Alison mentioned about pace and stuff in the tight Victoria Park pitch and stuff like that. Dyson Maida wasn't at his best against Aberdeen either, but is that enough to rotate him out right away, given the options you've got, and you could switch Jota to the left from the start rather than during the game? I'm unconvinced about that as well, which is why I'm kind of coming back to the as you were thing. You could make the argument that smaller Victoria Park pitch might in a way negate Dyson Maida's best abilities somewhat, but even then, I still think he's one of the first names that Postecoglou wants in his team most of the time. So, yeah, I think Jota will be more crucial at breaking down the Staggies' block if the game pans out like that. But I still think Maida will start as well.
I just think that it could be a physical challenge, Alison, which led me to Giakoumakis, kind of going like for like up front. That was what I was thinking more than anything else, and because Kyogo wasn't on it last week, as Sean said, he wasn't at his best. But again, it's game 2. Everybody's striving for fitness and all that kind of stuff in form. So That was all my thing. There was no slight on Kyogo. I was just sort of
I completely take your point. I would absolutely take your point. And I think there's definitely an element of it. What I think you might see though is that that's a decision that's made during the course of the game. I think that's maybe a change that happens if it's not going the way that you want. If you're not getting on top of things, I think it's a change that takes place, maybe on the hour mark or whatever. I have to say, I think he'll go with Kyogo Furuhashi.
He probably will. But I was just throwing Giakoumakis out there, and I don't. The comment there from Patrick, I don't think anyone was saying that he can't handle Dingwall.
No, nobody said that. There might have been a comment. I don't know. There might have been a comment.
And Kyogo, I mean, Kyogo is, as we've spoken about, the number one striker in Ange's eyes. He starts when he's fit, But I was just throwing it out there as an alternative. That was all, because I don't know. There you go. A tight pitch with the back four sitting in the 80-yard box isn't a pitch for runners who want to run in behind. Beach Boys is making that point. It is going to be a difficult game, and Celtic traditionally have, in recent times, it's been a happy hunting ground, but they have found it difficult, haven't they, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, funnily enough, I have looked that up as well.
Right.
Last season, it was just not necessarily in Dingwall, but the 4 games last year were 2-0, 4-0, 2-1, and 3-0. So obviously the odd one out there was the Anthony Ralston 97th minute winner. So the 2-1 was arguably more important than any of the other ones. But Dingwall, obviously Ross County were in the Highland League and have progressed through the ranks and stuff like that. But in the last 11 years, up in Dingwall, Celtic have played 17, won 11, drawn 3, lost 3, which actually sounds really good. But see, when you compare that to the records that they possess against other teams, there's like the drawn 3, lost 3. Celtic don't often drop points in 6 games and out of 17 against people, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I'd agree with you. I think Dingwall is difficult to go. I think given that the season they had last year in the League Cup, the positive campaign that they've had, it will be a Ross County team that might actually secretly fancy having a go at Celtic, or at least try to get something from the game. I think it's important to note as well that their opening game, all right, they lost it to Hearts. Hearts also a very good team, by the way, but they, by all accounts, Ross County were unlucky not to be a couple of goals up in the first half. Dominic Samuel and I think Edwards as well, Alison, hit the woodwork. So I expect them to be slightly more conservative when they play Celtic than they would have been against Hearts, and that even Malcolm Mackay himself has said that he wants to play like, because he was yesterday, the Ross Journal and the Pressing Journal up north and stuff reporting that he's really he thinks quite highly of Ange Postecoglou. He almost takes the way that he approaches it as a bit of an inspiration and stuff. But nonetheless, against Celtic, at home or not, I expect him to be more conservative. So although it'll probably be the kind of 4-2-3-1, it will be realistically a 4-5-1 or even at times a 5-4-1 in practice. So people aren't wrong to be pointing out that it will be a low block probably that Celtic are going to come up against. They don't tend to have much of the ball. Nobody tends to have much of the ball against Celtic. Let's not lie. But I mean, Ross County in particular, last year, put it this way, they had 42% possession against Hearts last week. They're not going to have that against Celtic, even though it's a home. I think their average was about 27% possession in the 4 games against Celtic last season. So they're not going to have the ball. And what do you do if you don't have the ball? Chances are they're not going to press Celtic high. They're going to sit deep. So this is where people are right to be commenting about the low block. And to answer somebody put in a question, David Ferguson, have Ross County changed their centre backs? No, it's Alex Jakovite and Jack Baldwin will still be the centre backs as far as I can see. So it'll be the same kind of task that they're up against.
Retro Celtics telling me Alison Kyogo will score tomorrow. Put the wardrobe on it, and then somebody else has said, where is it? I'll find it. That Kyogo could score with a wardrobe on his back. There you go, Les Watts. I think Kyogo could score carrying a wardrobe.
I don't think that's something you should attempt.
No, I don't think it's something you should attempt either, but that's us told. Kyogo to score tomorrow. Kyogo plays, Sean. That's it. Same 11. There it is. Done. Sorted. Thanks, guys.
Is that, are you backtrack any further, Tony? You'll be in that wardrobe.
I mooted the point that George's Giakoumakis could play, and Alison was saying, due to the manager's comments, that was all. I never said he would. I just mooted the point.
Do you reckon, Alison, is he going to backtrack out it when he submits this predicted 11?
I think you can bet your wardrobe it.
Now, it's the second game of the season. We're all looking forward to it. Celtic in Dingwall, and hopefully another 3 points for Celtic to celebrate. But it's now, they're starting to get into the groove, Alison, aren't they? Because last week there was signs of it, wasn't there?
Yeah, I think that's exactly. I think what you saw last week was a team that hadn't played a competitive game yet. I think that came through in the performance. I think it was a reasonable performance. You saw it kind of peaks and troughs. I think what Ange Postecoglou want is a greater intensity across the course of the 90 minutes. You know the way he wants them to play. It's fairly clear. You know what his philosophy is, and it's about sustaining a certain level for the entirety of the game, to go back to that very first Lennoxtown, training session that was filmed. Get it into your heads. We don't stop. We go to the 90th minute. You stop. You celebrate after the game. I think you know the demands that he places on this team. You know the way that he wants to play, and what he wants is greater fluency, urgency, and being clinical when you're on top.
Do you think that's what it is, Sean? I made the point that Ange was a perfectionist, and he strives for perfection, and picking out the faults last week's just his way of saying it was good, but not as good as I want it to be. It can be better.
Yeah, I think there's numerous things there. There's the whole make sure you still buy into the collective thing for individualistic players. There's also the notion of 2 trophies was all well and good last year, but that was last year. There's that kind of thing as well. So when you said it was a well-rehearsed ad lib, I think you're probably right. I think there was always going to be something maybe that he was hoping to make sure the proverbial rocket up somewhere, that kind of thing. But David Gillespie's comment here saying he's got a feeling Celtic are going to be clinical tomorrow. That's first and foremost basically what Ange Postecoglou said after the Aberdeen game, that they weren't against the Dons. Because when you look at the data round up the stats and stuff, even the eye test from your player ratings, Tony, there was not really that many negatives, if you know what I mean.
No, there wasn't.
But nonetheless, that one that he focused on was probably the only one he could have focused on, which was the profligacy of chances and in front of goal and stuff like that. So, yeah, I've got to point out here, Patrick McLaughlin says it was something that he read elsewhere this week, because it certainly wasn't on the Celtic way, Tony.
That's fair enough. I was a bit bemused by the comment, but now that it's been explained,
you're back to Yakimakis and your predicted 11. That's fine.
Knowledge is power, and knowledge is everything, isn't it? Yes, indeed. Okay, then we'll put ourselves on the spot. Yep. Prediction time. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first if you want, since I've given you a hard time there. I think as we sat here, most of the start, certainly the starting part of last season, and said an early goal will be crucial. So I think if they get an early goal, I fancy like a 4-0. But see if it's a bit of a toil for the first chunk of the game, I think it could be as close as 1-0 and then back down the road. I do think they'll win either way, though. In terms of a scorer, if it's 1-0, I think Callum McGregor for some reason.
Okay, and what if it's 4-0? You take
Callum McGregor
1-0.
Kyogo certainly. Anyway, Tony, that's without a doubt.
Alison, yourself, what do you think?
I'm going to go for 2-1. I think it might be quite tight. I think Celtic will prevail. I think they'll be in a game. Okay,
I'm going to go 3-0. Patrick McLaughlin says 3-1. Kevin Ferrier 5-1. Michael Ross 2-0, same as last week. Scoreline against Aberdeen. Plethora of opinion. So are you having both, Sean? 4-0 and 1-0? Is that 2 scorelines that you're having? Is that allowed?
Yes,
is that allowed? Yes, is that in the rules, Alison?
I wrote the rules.
That's what
if you're pushing me, I'll go with a slightly more controversial 1-0 then.
Sean storming out the playground there, Alison. It's my ball. I'm off.
It's the same with these end of season awards when I cop out by picking Ange Postecoglou signing of the season. Well, how can he do that? Because he wrote the rules.
Fair enough. Well, it'll all come out in the wash in Dingwall tomorrow. As always, guys, thanks for your comments in the section. We appreciate it. We try and read them out as much as we can, and we appreciate you subscribing and being part of the Celtic Way community. Along the bottom, as you can see, £1 a month for full access. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. You know what to do. Hit the button. Alison, thanks very much. Always appreciate it. Sean,
have a nice weekend.
Class, indeed, yes. Here's hoping it's a winning weekend again, Sean.
Yep. Remember, since it's not on the telly, it's a 3 o'clock kickoff, but it's not on the telly, so get yourselves onto the website, get the ratings, all the updates, all the post-match, pre-match, all that stuff. It'll all be there.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Cheers, guys.